What is up guys, Jarv here, back today jumping into Outriders. Now in our video today we're taking a look at an insane build for Technomancer. So if you're looking to jump into some endgame content in Outriders, then be sure to stick around and enjoy the video. Massive shout out to Square Enix for sponsoring this video and the entire series so far. That helps support us here on the channel. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a rating and comment down below. And if you want to keep up to date with all the latest Outriders content too, then be sure to hit subscribe. But without further delay guys, let's jump into the video. Now, if you're looking at endgame builds, you most definitely have your hands already on Outriders. Now, Outriders is an amazing RPG shooter with brutal powers and intense action, deep RPG mechanics, and a compelling story set in a dark sci-fi world of Enoch. Now, it's available across all major platforms, including PC, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, PS5, and PS4. With full crossplay enabled, allowing you to team up with different players from different platforms. Now, if you're still on the fence about jumping into Outriders, the Outriders demo is still available to download for free and comprises of the first few hours of the game, which launched on the 1st of April. So if you want to try before committing to buy, I highly recommend that you jump into the demo. A link is down in the video description below with all the details of everything that's included and how you can get started in the crazy world of Outriders. Now, today's video is all about the Technomancer. We're going to be looking at a build that I've created that allows you to jump into expeditions and some of the higher tier ones with relative ease. So if you're looking to unleash some incredible amounts of DPS, let's jump into the details and see how we can pull this off. Now, first of all, we're going to take a look at the class skills. There are 3 that you can choose in total once you've unlocked all 8 on each class. Now, the first one we're using as part of this build is called Blighted rounds. Now, this allows you to fill your current weapons magazine with decay-infused bullets that inflict toxic onto enemies. Enemies within a small radius of the main target will also receive toxic and 50% of damage. And that skill lasts until you either reload or switch weapons, and it has a cooldown of 48.9 seconds. Now, the art behind this build is that we're going to have Blighted rounds up all of the time. So with this extra amount of damage being dealt and toxic being applied to all enemies, and with all enemies taking 50% of that damage as well as toxic, it's going to make taking down groups of adds an absolute breeze. Now, next up we have Cold Snap, and this is where you drop a gadget to inflict freeze onto all enemies within a large radius around you. Has a cooldown of 23.3 seconds, and this ability is a great offensive and defensive ability. So if you're getting overwhelmed or you anticipate a massive wave of adds, it's a fantastic ability to pull off, and paired with Blighted rounds means you can take out multiple frozen targets in the shortest time possible. And last by no means least, we have Blighted turret. So you can place an automated turret that deals damage and inflicts toxic onto enemies. The turret's health depletes slowly over time or when the turret takes damage, and this has a cooldown of just 6.5 seconds. So this has a very high amount of uptime because the cooldown is so low, allowing you to provide passive damage to all the enemies on the battlefield whilst also granting toxic, which when we look at our class tree will allow us to deal even more damage. So if we take a look here, we have increased our weapon damage by 8%, and we've paired this with increasing our max health by 10%. Weapon leech has a 5% increase and armor piercing an additional 10, and increasing our crit by plus 15. Exposing toxin is absolutely key because every time toxic is applied to an enemy, vulnerable is also applied, and with marked of the execution, this is 40% more effective. So these two together are the perfect pair. Now from here we've decreased our long range by 3 meters, and also toxic is also applied to enemies which last 30% longer. We've further increased our weapon damage by 8%, and all enemies inflicted with toxic also receive 10% more damage. From here we increase our weapons damage by a further 8% and also activate Assault Master. This increases our assault weapon damage by 20%, increases our assault weapon drop chance by 20%, and this applies to assault weapons such as the assault rifle, light machine gun, submachine gun, and the double gun. So we're very much setting ourselves up for those close quarters encounters. Now from here we further increase our assault weapon damage by 12% and also increase our armor piercing by 10% too. This allows us to unlock 2 sides of the power. This basically turns us into a glass cannon by increasing the damage we receive from all sources by 15%, but also allowing us to deal 20% more damage too. And for the final part of our Pestilence build, we have Sharpshooter, which increases our long range weapon damage by 30%. This allows us to unlock U214 clips, which increases our magazine size by 50%, effectively increasing that margin of error, meaning we can keep up Blighted rounds for longer. From here we've activated Purge, where enemies inflicted with toxic receive 15% more damage, and we finish it off with Empowering Antenna. Now by activating Decay, this increases weapon damage for you and your allies by 40% for 10 seconds, and this utilizes both of the class abilities were activated on our skill tree. So that's a good look at everything that's going on under the hood on this Technomancer and sets us up for success. But in order to pull this off, we need some amazing weapons, but also some mods on our armor to really make this the powerhouse of all Outriders. And the absolute key weapon that I've got available today, and it's more so the perks on the weapon rather than the weapon itself, is Absolute Zero. This is an assault rifle standard VAR, an incredible legendary weapon, and the two mods we have on here are Bone Shrapnel but also Gravedigger's Frenzy. Now Bone Shrapnel is where killing shots detonate the enemy's bones and turns them into shrapnel, dealing 85,000 damage. This also inflicts bleed onto enemies within a 5-meter radius. And for Gravedigger's Frenzy, this is where critical shots increase your critical damage by up to 50% for 5 seconds. So if you can hit your crits are going to do incredible amounts of extra damage, and for any enemies that you defeat, these are going to explode into shrapnel, taking out any targets in the vicinity. And when you pair this with Blighted rounds, which is going to be up most of the time as your magazine resets on a kill, you're going to be mowing down targets out on the battlefield. Now it's not just weapons that are the star of every build, it's also the mods that are on our armor. If we take a look at our headgear here, we have two mods once again. One's called Dum Dum Bullets and the other's called Shield Zap. Now the key one here is Dum Dum Bullets, which increases our assault weapon damage by 10%. Now Shield Zap is a great defensive ability, so when your shield is active, this spawns an electric shock around you, dealing 14,000 damage for up to 2 enemies within a 5-meter radius. So if those enemies out on the battlefield feel they can get up close and personal when you have your shield up, they can think again when you've got Shield Zap equipped. Now moving on to our upper armor, we have a legendary piece here called the Road of Borealis Monarch. Now this has 2 key perks, the main one being Icicle Storm. This links into our Cold Snap ability. Now killing enemies which are frozen by the skill makes them explode, dealing 55,000 damage within a 5-meter radius. A perfect partner to Shrapnel, which is on our assault rifle. We've also paired this with Bloodlust. Now this is where killing shots increase your firepower by nearly 3,000, and this stacks up to 3 times and deteriorates every 10 seconds. So all in all, a very powerful upper armor piece, a perfect partner to a lot of the skills we've already selected earlier in the video. Now moving on to our lower armor, we have the Behemoth Trousers, we have Mitigation from Death, but also Plate Piercer as the 2 mods here. Now Mitigation from Death is where killing enemies whilst aiming down sights grants 16,000 points of armor for 10 seconds, and this stacks up to 3 times. This perk alone offers us some extra protection out on the battlefield, as at this point we are essentially a glass cannon. And we paired this with Plate Piercer, which increases our crit damage by 10%, and the bonus is equal to 50% of our armor piercing. So all in all, an armor piece here that offers us extra protection, but also additional lethality by increasing our damage output out on the battlefield. And this brings us nicely onto our Containment Overseer's gloves. Now we have 2 great mods on here. We have Damage Absorber and also Aura of the Force. Now with Damage Absorber, this increases your armor by 25,000 and your resistance by 10%, further giving us extra protection out in the midst of battle. And for Aura of Force, killing enemies with critical shots grants 11,000 anomaly power to you and your allies for 10 seconds. A very strong armor piece that offers a combination of additional protection but also anomaly power for you and your allies. And this brings us nicely onto our final armor piece, our footgear. And the key part to this armor piece is all the buffs it's given to our toxic abilities. We have 2 toxic mods on here. We have Toxic Lead and Toxic Piercer. Now for Toxic Lead, killing enemies afflicted by Toxic will instantly replenish 40% of your magazine. Perfect for keeping Blighted rounds up, giving us extra weapon damage, but also inflicting Toxic to any combatants out on the battlefield. And for Toxic Piercer, the effectiveness of Toxic is increased by 20%, and the bonus is equal to 100% of your armor piercing. A very strong perk, one that only makes any of our toxic abilities even more deadly. So there we have it, a good detailed look at this insane DPS build for the Technomancer. So if you're struggling in some of these expeditions, especially the higher tier runs, be sure to try some of these skills and mods if you have them available to see if they can help you increase your DPS, but also offer you additional protection out in the fight. Once again, massive shout out to Square Enix for sponsoring this video and the entire series so far. And if you haven't jumped into Outriders just yet, I highly recommend that you give it a try. Now the demo will remain available even though the game has already launched, giving you a perfect opportunity to give it a try, and any progress that you do make in the demo will carry over to the final game too, so nothing will be lost, and it's most definitely worth your time and effort. Now if you have enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a rating and comment down below. That super helps me out here on the channel too. Or if you're new here and you want to keep up to date with all the latest Outriders content, and I get a a feeling there's going to be a lot more Outriders content coming here on the channel, then be sure to hit subscribe as well. I'm going to jump back into the game as always, guys, and I will catch you all again very soon.